Here now, Dinesh D'Souza, conservative author and filmmaker, and Kelly Hyman, a social justice attorney. Dinesh, let's start with you. There's something strange here going on with today's Democrats, because one of their radical members proposes something which most people think is absolutely insane, and yet then they all rush in to get behind it and to state it as their actual opinion. So what's going on here?
Well, this may seem like a radical turn in the Democratic Party, but it's actually anchored in the deep history of progressivism and the early 20th century Democrats. Of course, in the early 20th century, it wasn't abortion. But the two issues that progressives were very fascinated by, one was forced sterilization, and the other was forced euthanasia, basically killing. And Margaret Sanger, for example, was a champion of the sterilization side, forced sterilization. And she was an admirer of the Nazi sterilization program of 1933. Now, the Nazi euthanasia program of 1935 was also directly lifted from blueprints supplied by American progressives. So this is the actual deep, dark history of the Democratic Party. It's been kind of papered over by progressive historiography, but it's all coming back in a nightmarish fashion.
Well, again, we're looking at the results of this most recent poll. It's without a doubt been influenced by this infanticide debate, I think. And as a social justice attorney, how do you view this change, even among Democrats, on that issue of abortion?
Well, first off, Laura, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's great to be here. And I think we really need to focus on what the issue is. And we must look at it from the standpoint of unwanted pregnancies and how we prevent that, the best way to avoid that, and what we need to do to help people and advise them of the problems that they have. And so I think it's really important to think about education. And also,
I get that, Kelly, but keep us focused on, we want to keep focused very specifically on what we're talking about here. We're not talking about counseling people on birth control. We're talking about infants who are actually born. And the U.S. Congress can't get itself together to protect an infant that is born alive. Now, people think it's unfair because, Mitch McConnell brought that to the floor. Well, it's a person, and the person is living. And now the Democrat Party has gotten so, they're just totally smothered by this abortion deal that they can't even see the lack of basic humanity in that moment. Now, how did we get there, and how do we get past this? Because this is, forget whether it's bad for the Democrats. I frankly don't care whether it's bad for the Democrats. These are people, including girls, little girls who have very few people to speak for them. That's my concern here. It's not teen pregnancies are going down. This is a problem when a country embraces infanticide, Kelly, and I can't imagine that you do. I just have a feeling you don't even buy this. Do you? Do you buy into this?
Well, I understand in regards to the legislation that was proposed that there are already books on the law that handle this situation. And my understanding is that there hasn't been a situation that occurred like this. And I go back to the point, I think it's really important.
Yeah, there have been situations like this where people have been born alive after botched abortions. And we're going to talk to Abby Johnson, who's a former Planned Parenthood clinic director, who's going to talk about that in just a moment. But again, we're talking about right now, we're not talking about first trimester abortions, whatever you think about that, even second trimester, which most people are against. We're talking about a child born alive. And I get why, Planned Parenthood wants to keep the money coming in. But Dinesh, this is not what it was supposed to be about. Hillary nodded her head during that debate when Donald Trump said, "You want to rip the baby up after the baby's viable." And she said no. She basically said, no. Well, yes, apparently.
Going back to the 1960s, I think it was a feminist, Shulamit Firestone, who said the fetus is an uninvited guest. I think this is the heart of the debate, because as long as the fetus is considered an extension of the woman's body, the argument is the woman should have every right to dispose of it as she sees fit. But the important thing is that even in Roe v. Wade and the early abortion decisions, the Supreme Court acknowledged that this issue of viability, the argument shifts the moment that the fetus can live outside the womb. Of course, the fetus is still dependent on the mother, but a 2-year-old is also dependent on the mother. So viability was a critical reasoning pivot of the early abortion decisions, and it seems like that's gone out the window. And the basic idea now is that even if the fetus is viable outside the womb, if we feel like killing it, we should be able to do that.
Kelly, final words.
I think that we need to come with a resolution, and I think it's important. The way to think about it is when we think about a resolution is what's the way to deal with this, and the best way to deal with this is to deal with it about the unwanted pregnancies and how to resolve that and what we need to do to fix that.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but there are a lot of people who are desperate to adopt children. And I'm speaking as an adoptive mother. There are just so many people out there who would just love to take these babies and raise the children. And I understand a lot of people are, this is a tough issue for a lot of people, but just on the infanticide question, we have to be better than this. But I'm really glad both of you came on. Dinesh and Kelly, thanks so much.
Thank